Okay, once again, we're in the coat room, and this time we're with Representative John Yarmuth out of Louisville. Representative Yarmuth, are you having a good time at the convention so far?
I am. I'm having a wonderful time, and it's a great experience. I have not had this experience before. And
This is your first convention?
well, I was at the Republican convention in 1972, but there's
Okay.
a staff person for Marlowe Cook, who was the U.S. Senator from Kentucky at the time. But obviously that was a very long time ago, and I was there in a very different capacity. So this is quite a different experience.
So is there no comparison?
Oh, no comparison.
No comparison.
No. And these are much bigger productions now, and there's much more money involved in surrounding them, and which I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that there's so many people, special interest trying to
Sponsor
exert
these
enthusiasm
things.
here. Well, I don't think we need that, but no. All told, it's quite a phenomenal environment.
It's interesting, the influence of money is so subtle. I was at a dinner the other night that was sponsored by a company, and I know that there's just a innate human reciprocity that when somebody gives you something, you feel like you need to give them something back. I mean, and it's very subtle and it's almost unavoidable.
Right, and I don't really think it's all that subtle. And every stump speech I make, I talk about the influence of money and how if we don't figure out a way to get the big money out of politics, we're going to have a very hard time coming up with the best solutions to healthcare and energy and some of the other major challenges that face us.
Yeah, and you just to be clear, you don't accept any corporate PAC money.
I don't accept any corporate PAC money.
So on that note, let's talk about the race coming up. You have a challenger. It must be nice to have a challenger and not be the challenger.
Well, yeah, I much prefer being the incumbent. Of course, it's against the same candidate I unseated 2 years ago, so it's deja vu all over again. I'm confident that I'm going to be successful this fall. There's really no reason that anyone would think after 2 years that they want to return to the politics that Ann Northup represented. I mean, she basically was part of the Bush-Cheney agenda that has dug us into this incredible hole we're in.
Seems like Louisville was just a little bit ahead of the curve on the rest of the country, right?
Well, I like to think so, but clearly, we have, I think, made a very good start on changing the direction of the country. But we need help. We need more numbers. We need a Democrat in the White House, and I'm looking forward to serving with Barack Obama because I think we can really begin to make the kind of long-term solutions for, again, healthcare, rebuilding the economy, rebuilding the infrastructure of the country, rebuilding our education system. We have a lot of work to do.
It may be, I don't think I'm saying anything not obvious, but it seems like Kentucky's out of play for Barack Obama.
Well, that seems to be conventional wisdom, but I was speaking to a reporter for the Courier the other day who said that they're now, according to the figures he looked at, there are 12% more Democrats in Kentucky than there were 2 years ago. If that's the case, they're all first-time voters, then they're not being polled because they're not likely voters, and that's 100 to 150,000 new Democrats. Now that changes the dynamics completely.
Totally.
Because any new Democrat is going to come out and vote Democratic this
Yeah.
time. They wouldn't have registered that way. So I think that changes the race between Mitch McConnell and Bruce Lunsford if those numbers are right, and it puts the state in play for Barack. It's still an uphill climb for him. There's no question about it. But,
Yeah.
I think he's going to do real well.
Certainly with Hillary's speech last night, it had to go a long way in Kentucky.
I think I said last night, I believe it, I think Hillary Clinton won the election for Barack last night.
You think so?
Yeah.
So was that the highlight for the convention for you so far?
Well, not really. I have to say that to see Ted Kennedy on stage talking about the torch being passed to a new generation, the same words that his brother used in his inaugural in 1961, that was so meaningful to me because when I worked in the Senate 35 years ago, he was a young member of the Senate at that point, and to think that here's a man who for almost 50 years has pursued his vision for America with the same passion day after day after day and is still at it even though he's in his last months was so moving to me. And I've become friends with his son Patrick, who's a congressman from Rhode Island, and I saw Patrick yesterday morning and he was as glowing with pride as I've ever seen anybody, and
I bet.
was so happy with the fact that his father was able to do that.
What a wonderful moment. You know, I was outside the Pepsi Center, and they were broadcasting the audio while Ted Kennedy is speaking. And Richard Dillon from Western Kentucky was inside, and he became a Democrat because of the Kennedys. And the effect on people outside was incredible. You would see people approach the Pepsi Center and get within hearing distance of the convention center, and they would start trotting, and young people are running to the doors to once they realize that it's Ted Kennedy speaking. It was a really neat effect. What are your plans for today, Senator Yarmuth?
Well, I'm going to be going to a luncheon that involves these bikes that Humanists.
You're going to be biking?
I'm going to try to bike over there. I also have a Democratic Congressional Caucus meeting that I'm going to participate in, and then later in the afternoon I'm going to relax a little bit and then go back to the Pepsi Center tonight.
I definitely have a nap in my future this afternoon. One last question. What can Kentucky Democrats do? How are we to connect to Kentuckians who have been devastated by the last 8 years? How can we convince them that it's the Democratic plan and not the Republican plan that is the way out of the misery that the Bush administration has created?
I think we can talk all we want. And what I've found to be the most effective way is, unfortunately it's a one-on-one game, but you have to talk to the people who still believe that Republicans offer a better solution and ask them questions. And how's your life better? What has happened to you? It's the old, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Although we can say 8 years.
Unfortunately.
Ago. And just what is it about the Republican agenda you think works? What do you think has been helpful to you? And when they are forced to re-examine or to examine those questions, basically they'll come up empty. And I've been doing that since 2004, and I've done it actually with a lot of Republicans too, saying just what is it about the Republican agenda under George Bush that actually conforms to what your notion of republicanism is? Because this is a radical agenda that this administration has proposed.
It's not like
for
any
America.
Republicanism that's ever existed before.
This is a wildly radical agenda that is bent on reshaping and reforming the entire country in a way that will not help the average citizen. I mean, there are three primary things that they've tried to do. They've tried to restore American imperialism around the world. We know that's an utter failure. They've tried to undermine not just the credibility of government, but the effectiveness of government.
Sure.
And they've done, unfortunately, a great job of both of those. They've made government incompetent, because that's what they set out to do, and therefore people don't have any faith in it.
Great job, Brownie.
Exactly, you got it. And thirdly, they are trying to rewrite the Constitution in many different ways. Obviously, we know about habeas corpus and the fact that they've tried to eliminate that right from the Constitution. But they've tried to flip the executive branch and the legislative branch and make the president. They've got this theory called the unitary executive, which means that the president has absolute power and is not held accountable. That should frighten every American, and that's why
I'm gonna go down to your Article 1 button.
Because Article 1 established the Congress and vested all legislative power in the Congress. And they made the Congress number 1 and the executive branch number 2 because they said, we don't want the president to be the decider. We want the people to decide through their representatives in Congress.
We've had a king and it didn't work out.
Exactly right. So on all these bases, I mean, this has been a disastrous administration on so many levels, and that's what I say to anybody, whether they're Republican or Democrat, is this administration, there's nothing that they have done that you can actually say has benefited this country or individuals.
Totally. I love the idea of asking questions of people, though, because it's a non-confrontational way of asking them to examine their beliefs.
That's right, yeah.
I've been asking a lot of people what we can do to reach out to Democrats, and I have to say this may be the best answer that I've gotten so far, right here in this courtroom.
And it's the same thing I say when I'm confronted with a Hillary supporter who's reluctant to support Barack Obama.
Yeah.
You ask the questions. Just what do you think you're going to get out of a McCain administration that represents your values? What is that going to do for you? What is that going to do for the country? And when they're again faced with that question, the answer is pretty obvious.
Representative Yarmuth, thanks so much for meeting with us.
My pleasure.